Hiya and welcome back to the Avian directory. I almost said Finch Keeper. We used to be Finch Keeper, but we changed the name and the domain name to the Avian directory. And the reason for that is so we can have more of a broad spectrum. So it's not just about finches, it can be about any birds. This video is not actually about how to hand rear, but it's more of what to be aware of before you consider if you're considering hand rearing. So I just wanted to highlight the fact, some of the things that you may not be aware of, that you should be. There are two types of hand rearing. The first would be hand rearing is hand rearing, of course, but what happens when the bird can feed itself? That's where the two types come into play. So you're either going to hand rear and keep the bird as a hand tamed pet, maybe having it fly around the house, what we call a free flying bird. And the second is where they put the bird, but once it's able to feed itself and look after itself, you put it in with the rest of the flock and just leave it, and then it becomes just part of your flock, which would eventually no longer be really hand tamed. It may be a little bit friendly, but you know, they just sort of become like the rest of the flock. I wrote down a list of things that I wanted to go through, and I must admit, I've made this video about 20 times. And I was not happy with any of them. Well, one of them I was, but I just wasn't happy with little bits in it, so I've redone the video. The first thing I wanted to go on about was the health and well-being of the bird. When you raise a bird, there is no point in buying cheap quality food. There is no point, and I always say if you buy the cheap quality food, it's rubbish. You pay rubbish. If you're going to pay rubbish money, which, you know, cheap stuff, you're going to end up with rubbish. The product's no good. Very rarely you're going to pay something cheap for a very good quality product. So I always say spend a bit more. If you care about the bird that much, spend that little bit more, and then you'll end up with a good quality bird. Make sure that you're getting exactly what that species needs. Whatever bird it is you're raising, you need to study them a little bit first before you. Don't just raise a species when you don't know nothing about them. Study them first, find out a bit about their species, what they need, what is their main diet, what nutritional things do they need, are they a flocking bird, do they need company of their own species when they're older? Because some birds prefer, like budgies, some budgies actually do prefer being on their own, or they get attached to the people, or cockatiels, cockatoos, and just things like that. Some birds like that, they do prefer the company of humans, but really they do need the opposite sex of their own species. It won't matter if they're all pally with you, they may argue with them, but over a period of time they will eventually adapt to a partner. They will need a partner of their own species at some point, so you may need to consider that. Health and well-being. Also, yeah, there's another thing, is the exercise. And you must make sure that bird has plenty of exercise. If you do put it into a cage, make sure the cage has plenty of room where they need to be able to fly from, they don't want to hop from one perch to the next. They need to fly. That's why they've got wings. And if you only have a small cage and they can't fly, you need to let the bird out so they can fly around the room. It's not fair on the bird at all, or else they become cage bound, where they can no longer. It's like being sat down near enough your whole life, and when you go to stand up, you can't. So that's something to think about. State of mind and depression is both. This is for both the person who's hand rearing and the bird. So you need to make sure that bird is going to be occupied all its life. So it has. Some species require lots of activities to keep their minds busy. Like loads of little nesting boxes to go in and out, or nesting baskets, or loads of foliage to hide between, and that's why some birds need colonies. So some birds are very, very social. They need a good social life, whereas other birds, they're not social. They just want to be on their own quite a lot. Another one, for instance, would probably be the cuckoo. I mean, I know a lot of people don't keep cuckoos, but that's just an example. Some birds do prefer to be on their own. State of mind is for the person as well, because you may be a depressed person, someone who's very sad, depressed, emotional problems, or just generally someone who's an emotional person in life and may not do well when they lose a bird or when they lose a pet of any kind or even relative, etc. So it's very important to think when you're hand rearing a bird and it's growing up and it's all young and it's healthy and it's vibrant and you've got the best years. And then as it gets older, you will notice it slowed down. The plumage looks not so good, not so vibrant. As the bird gets old, it may get arthritis, it may get other physical problems as well, illnesses. Can you handle the loss of something like that? It's all right at the beginning when everything's good, but if you have mental problems or health problems, you may not deal with the loss so well. I mean, I found it hard I always find it hard losing birds. I mean, I personally have hand reared a lot of birds, and I've incubated literally thousands of birds. The eggs and stuff, and I've hatched out, and I've watched many die because, like you, I'm no different from you. I've learned the hard way, and I also learned a lot from other people as well. I listen to guys like maybe people like you. So you may not know, you may think you know nothing about hand rearing, or birds in general. You may be just a beginner. But I found even beginners have things to teach experienced people. You'd be surprised. You may be only a couple of years or a year into breeding birds or looking after birds, and you learn things about the birds that you don't expect to learn. You don't know that you've learned them, and you may get into conversation with someone one day who is an experienced person with birds, and you've learned something. You said to them, you may disagree with him or her because of what they've said, and you say, "Hang on a minute, I've only been doing it. I've only been looking after birds for a year, but I know this or that. What you're saying is not true because this and that." So it's never ever think because you're a beginner you don't know anything, because the chances are you probably do. So I don't want people to think that because they're a beginner they don't know anything, because that is a load of rubbish. The more you are interested in something, the more you learn, and the quicker you learn. You learn a lot more quicker than someone who's not really interested, not that bothered about it, but they just do it. The people that are more keen, more really interested, they're hungry for the knowledge, so they pick it up quicker, and that's good, because the quicker and better you learn, the better it is, the better life your little birdie will have. I think I've already covered living conditions, because living conditions is more making sure the environment is right for that species that you're having. For instance, if you had a pigeon or a dove, obviously they don't mind cages, but they can't live the whole life in a cage. They need to come out, but they don't need things like swings and mirrors and things like that. Whereas a smaller bird, like a finch or some kind, or or a budgie or parakeets and things like they like all that sort of thing. They like toys, things to occupy their mind. The reason because they are intelligent. I always say all birds are intelligent. They're just intelligent in a different way. Because they're not intelligent in a way that a human is, does not make them unintelligent. And I found with the last little bird I had, the Hex grass finch. Now, I didn't really, when I first got into them, I'd not long been into grass finches. I didn't know much about them. In fact, I'd never even heard of them. After taking on one, and I bought another, this was a couple of years before the hand-reared one became about, I began to learn, and as I hand reared one and raised them, I've had huge flocks of them. And I tell you now, they are super intelligent and they need lots of exercise, and they are a fantastic bird. Absolutely, absolutely fantastic. And I recommend anybody who's going into hand rearing little birds, finches, go for the grass finch. They are so amusing. If you are a person who does suffer with depression and stuff like that, they really bring you out of your shell, and they're just brilliant. And it's not even just them. Even zebra finches, all finches. I just think they're a great little bird. The only downfall is their lifespan is very short, which is sad. I think birds are kind of a bit robbed really, because they should be I think they should live a lot longer than what they do, at least double the lifespan. Yeah, I think I've covered time. I think that's the only thing, like in life, that's the only thing that depresses me. It's like people think about losing their bird. It's not so much losing the bird that bothers me so much, because you know it's inevitable anyway. We're all going to lose everything eventually. What bothers me is time. Time is something you can actually see, in my view, because we all age. We look at each other, and you look at your pets, and with my little birds, I've watched them age over the years when they were little bouncy things running around, flying around, and all super active, and then eventually they slow down. The plumage doesn't look right, and you can just see the aging on them, and it's time. You can just that's the only thing that bothers me, and I find time a depressant. So other people may feel similar to that, and it's very, in this short video, it's very hard to go into something like that. But I don't want to depress people. I don't want to put people off hand rearing. Hand rearing is absolutely fantastic. I love it. I absolutely love it. And yes, I have lost some in the past, but it doesn't stop me from it. It doesn't make me want to pack up. It makes me want to give more birds, a chance. The last one I lost, I watched him grow from the first blood vessel in the egg right up to the day when he passed from natural old age. It was just one of those things, and it was very sad. But I want to give another bird a chance now, and I want to do the same thing again. I'm not trying to replace them. Like, you can't replace a special pet. So I'm just going to bring another one into the world, hatch out an egg and just raise him and give him the best that I can, best life possible, as I did for the last ones and the last ones before that, and etc. And then just keep it going. I think that's the only way you can honour the birds that you have lost. If you've lost birds in the past, the way to honour them, in their memory, is to bring another bird up, give that bird a chance, because so many birds dying at the hands of humans. It's so unreal. And if you can get that special one and give them everything, give them the best life possible, and so they live a full life. They say certain birds only live 7 years. Well, same as the one I just lost, he lived 12 years. So it just goes to show. Mutual learning. I wanted to mention this because while the bird is learning from you, you're actually learning from the bird you're hand rearing. And you not only just learn about that bird's personality, his likes, dislikes, his little habits and stuff like that, but you're actually learning about their species, the whole species, and you don't realise it. I never realised it at the time until I sat down and thought. I went in a pet shop one day and I could hear these particular birds like calling out, and the person who run the shops, they were saying, "Oh yeah, they're always like that. They love singing." And I said, "But they're not singing." I said, "They're calling out." I said, they're males. They're calling out for females, and there's nothing else in the shop. They can't hear it." "Oh, how do you know that?" I said, "Because I've kept those species for years, and I've learned. I've hand reared them. I've looked after them. So that's something that you do learn about their species. That's the enjoyment of hand rearing. The hand rearing is absolutely. I just think it is really good. It's good for kids as well. If you've got young kids, it gives them something to do. It's useful. Getting away from those bloody computers and mobile phones and whatever. Give them some, something to look after, a bit of responsibility, and let them learn about the life and death and how the process. It's doing some good. Did me some good when I was younger. Babysitters and holidays. At some point, you're probably going to want to go on holiday. So you need to think, if you've brought up a bird from an egg and it knows you really well. If you bring another person in to look after that bird, the bird may not accept it very well, because it's like if you have a dog, you have a regular friend that comes in and out. The dog knows that person, so it's not going to bark and have a go, or run away and hide out of fear. But if you have someone that comes in that doesn't know, it's gone, or it's gonna have some kind of reaction to it because it doesn't know. They get frightened. Birds are more opposite than dogs. Dogs are more go for the person, whereas the birds get very frightened and they will hide away. So it's something to think about. If you do get someone, make sure they know who the person is who's looking after them, and make sure that person knows how to look after the bird as well. Don't just get anyone because you know them. And don't leave the bird for a long period of time if you do go on holiday. And you need to make sure that the person's looking after them, they need to know what to do if the bird becomes sick. And definitely do not leave the bird on its own, because some people would put a load of food in there, a load of water, and just sod off on holiday and think the birds will be all right. Now, if that bird gets sick, especially if it's a hand-tamed one, because he'd be used to your company, so if you go away, he's going to miss you, and it's in those few hours that they go downhill, and there's nobody there to rescue them, to take them anywhere. You'll come back to, your bird gone. It just. So I wanted to point that one out. That is quite important. Don't house your pet bird, your little hand-reared bird. Don't allow them into the kitchen, even if it's a free flyer, because you cook in the kitchen. There's going to be toxic fumes in there, especially if you're burning or cooking with Teflon. If it gets to a certain temperature, they begin letting off fumes. Or if you burn sort of things, or you've got chemicals or whatever. So you want to keep that in the kitchen. The kitchen is really not a safe place for any pet. And make sure if you've got anything in your front room, like incense, smelly candles, any kind of things that let off smells, and like spraying stuff around, like carpet freshener, get rid of all that, because it's not good. It might be good for you, but it's not good for the pet. Activities, I think I've covered activities. Nutrition, yeah, I think I mentioned that at the beginning. You only get what you pay for. So if you buy rubbish, you're going to get rubbish. So I always like to make sure that the birds get the proper food that species are meant to eat. So I will investigate. If I bring in a new species which I've never had before, I generally study them first. But if it's just a spare of the moment, I'm out in the middle of nowhere and there's a shop, there's a bird I really like and I don't know nothing about it, I'll buy it, get it home. The minute I get indoors, I keep it in that cage and I'll go straight online and I will study what I can about that bird. The first thing I learn is the nutrition and then the environment. That's the first thing I do. And then, of course, I'll give the bird a cage where it can quarantine for at least 30 to 40 days, because I don't want to buy a bird, put it straight into my other birds, etc. So, that's just something I want to point out as well. So, but like I say, you need to understand the species that you are rearing. So whatever bird it is that you decide to hand rear, study it first. Make sure you know everything about that bird's, what that species needs. So it's important just to highlight on those sort of things. Age, time, mutual learning, emotional attachments. That's the only one I think I haven't covered, is emotional attachments. Well, I think I sort of have. If you feel you can't let go of something very easy, if you get very attached to animals, then hand rearing is not going to be for you, especially at the end. Of course, bringing new life into the world, helping it grow, looking after it, caring for it is fantastic. It's really good. But if you can't handle the fact that you're going to lose the bird one day, which you will, unless you go before them, obviously, I wouldn't get one. But all in all, like all the birds I've had before, would I do them again? Yes. And can I handle the loss? Yes. But the reason being, I look at it, once they die from old age, it's a life fulfilled. It's a fulfillment. I've done my duty. I've done my part. I've raised the bird. I watched it grow. I watched it become an old bird, and then it naturally passed away. And it was as far as I'm concerned, it was a success. So nobody likes losing pets. It is heartbreaking to see them, especially if they're suffering. But you do need to take into consideration things like that. I do have a baby Gordian here, which I've a noisy one. What's that? I keep it in the brooder, and I keep the food in the brooder as well. And the reason being, I keep the food and the bird together in the brooder because I want the food to be the same temperature as what the bird is. So it's not uncomfortable or cold. So just get you out. My hands are cold. Come on in, I'll get you out. And every time I feed, I always change the beddings and stuff like that. Come on in, let me feed you. I'll bring that close. This one's already had a little bit of food, but it's very greedy. It's about 2 weeks old now, so should be fledging in about another 7 days. But this one's going to be a free-flying bird. Come on in, come on. Yeah. And don't give them too much at one time. You don't need to get it all in there in one go. Just little tiny bits at a time, and they're quite happy with that. You a bit cold, my hands are cold, aren't they? Beautiful little things. Come on in, smile for the camera. Cheek. Haven't figured a name for her yet, so yeah, I'll think of one. There you go, laugh a little bit. There you go. See, she don't like it too much. So I'm gonna put you back in there, Noisy. Come on in. I'd say if you wanted, if you have any questions that you want to ask me, feel free to ask in the comments below, or if you visit www.aviandirectory.uk, we have a forum on there, so you can ask questions on there. Also, there's FAQs on there, frequently asked questions about birds. There's a lot of stuff on there, but there's more being added as well over time. I mean, I'm doing it all on my own, developing the site and adding the content. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. The next video that I'll be doing will be actually how to hand rear. This video is more about what to be aware of. So hopefully the next one will be an educational video, and it will show you more hands-on stuff with eggs incubating, candling, hand feeding. And this particular bird is a little bit past the stage where I wanted to show you as it grows. So I'm going to do one. I've got eggs in the incubator now, and I will show you hopefully in the next video step by step as it develops, and then it hatches, and then pretty much over time I may make a small videos, like regular videos, and show you the development over the years as it gets older. So that's another thing I may do as well. So anyway, I'm going to end this video here. Again, if you need any questions answered, feel free to ask below, or you can visit the Facebook groups, which is Finch and Canary Keeper, or you can go to Gordian Finches and you can ask questions in there. They're very big groups, so hopefully you'll find some more information on there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.